What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, we are talking about scientific notation. And so just to recap, if you have not seen my first video, make sure you check that out, scientific notation of really big numbers. In this video, we're going to focus on the really small numbers. So to recap, how do we write a number in scientific notation? So the first part is that it is a number between 1 and 10. So in this case, I have 4 and 1/10. And then you need to multiply that by a power of 10. And so I have 10 to the negative 6 power here. And if I was going to figure out how to actually write this in standard form, what will happen is I'm going to write out 4 and 1/10 and 10 to the power of negative 6. What's going to happen is it's not going to give me a negative number. It's going to give me a really small number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the decimal, and since this is a negative number, I'm going to move this decimal to the left this time. So I'm going to start, write my decimal. I'm moving it 6 place values to the left. So let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 place values and add my decimal this time. And you can see I have a bunch of spaces. And in those spaces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill them in with zeros. And then I'm also going to add my leading zero there in the ones place. So what number we have here is we have 0.00000041. And so what we have here is we have a really small number. And what scientific notation does is it allows us to write that number in a way that might be easier to compare different numbers. Let's take a look at some real life examples. And so here we're given the length of a skin cell in inches. And so kind of crazy, it's actually that small, 0.0012. So we know that in scientific notation, the first number has to be between 1 and 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out that first number. So when I read this number, I'm going to get to my first number and then put a decimal point and include all the numbers after that. So I have 1 and 2/10. And I need to have a power of 10. The way I can figure this out is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that decimal, 0.0012. I'm going to start at the decimal point, and I'm going to move the decimal so that way I get to 1 and 2/10. So I'm going to move it once, twice, 3 times. So since I moved it 3 times, and I have a really small number, it's not going to be positive 3. This time it's going to be negative 3. Because remember when we did introduction to exponents and we talked about the powers of 10, when you have the negative exponent, it's going to help us to write really small numbers here. And so since I moved this 3 place values now, and I'm using the decimal for really small numbers, I'm using the negative exponent. How about the red blood cells in inches? And so now the numbers are getting even smaller. So I have 0.00031. So you guys, I'm going to scan across and I'm going to write 3 and 1/10. So that's going to be my first component. And I need a power of 10 for my second component. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move it now till I get to where I have 3 and 1/10. So I'm going to 1 place value, 2, 3, 4. So since I moved it 4 place values and I'm dealing with a decimal, I'm going to make sure that I have a negative exponent. So I have negative 4 as my exponent. And now you have the flu virus in inches. So since this is flu season, that's what a flu virus looks like, and it is tiny. It is 0.000005 inches. So if I look at a ruler and you can see 1 inch, you have to get a lot of them. So imagine how many flu viruses there are in 1 inch. That's a lot of that little flu virus in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this out. My first number is going to be 5. And so I need a number between 1 and 10. My second component is a power of 10. So the way I can figure this out is I'm going to start at my decimal, and I'm going to move my decimal until I get to where I have my first number as 5. So let's go to move it. So I'm moving it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 this time. So since I'm dealing with really small number, I have -6 as my exponent. And so scientific notation is really handy in writing really large numbers like the first video, and writing really small numbers as in these examples.